Okay, according to our friends at YouTube, this is now actually currently going, so we'll see how it goes. I'm going to move my microphone a scotch. All right. Now we just got to keep track and see how things are going over here. Okay. We'll mute you. And we'll skip that ad. Okay, so we should be good. In theory. I hope everyone's having a good day today. As soon as it starts actually working. Let's see here. We've got a couple of people in the chat. That's good. Peter Pan says good afternoon from northern Germany. Good afternoon. Sup. Indeed. Let's see here. Hoppity Hop 9 says, holy cow, I made one. Well, we're glad to have you here. Okay, there we go. Now it seems to be giving me stats, so I can see that there are 62 people watching. So that's pretty cool. 64. All right, there we go. Excellent. Hello from Cambridge, United Kingdom. Hello from the Netherlands. Patrick Peters says, got snow here in Upper Michigan already. Yeah, we had a little tiny bit, a dusting of snow yesterday morning, and then it melted off pretty quickly. So on Thursday and Friday, where I live, it was in the mid-60s, which in Fahrenheit is, I don't know, maybe around...
It is Fahrenheit.
Or sorry, in Celsius. In Celsius, it's about, I don't know, 16, 17 degrees maybe. And right now it is 27 degrees. So that's -3, -4 Celsius? Not sure. Temperatures have changed quickly, is my point, in the last couple of days. Morning from Vermont, Poland, Colchester, England, which I probably pronounced improperly. How about me? How am I doing? Well, I'm doing okay. Thank you very much for asking. Winchester, Bristol. We have a Bristol, Wisconsin, but it's not the same thing. Let's see here. Saskatoon. That's a fun word to say. Argentina. Well, that's pretty cool. Pittsburgh, Belgium. Douglas Hooker says he's still buzzing from the boot camp, which I assume is the boot camp from, I should probably turn on this camera. It's probably the boot camp from Beasts of War. They did a Walking Dead boot camp recently, which is boot camp is kind of like a little mini convention. You pay to come to Beasts of War offices, which are in Northern Ireland, and they have a big room, and you do stuff, and basically you pay to get like a copy of the game, and then you put it together, and then you learn to play. And a lot of times there's people from the company there. I know Ronnie from Mantic was there. Douglas says that Gianna and Dawn were there from the U.S. correspondents from Beasts of War, so that's cool. Martin says, hello, Adam. Sorry, can't watch live today. About to tuck into a very large Sunday roast. We'll watch this evening whilst painting some walkers. Have a good show. Well, that's exactly how it should be used. If you can't make it live, watch it later on while you paint. That's cool. Have a good time with the roast. That's pretty neat. Let's see here. Norfolk, UK. Sat on the dining room table, priming 28mm British Napoleonics. Nice. Jason Lewis says it's snowing in Pittsburgh. Canada says they're covered in snow. Well, that's kind of be expected and whatnot. Let's see here. Josh McCarthy says, I'm a couple hours south of you, Adam, and yesterday I realized I waited too long to buy a new winter coat. Yeah, that could be one of those things where they might be harder to find in certain stores. I mean, up here, you can find winter coats nearly year-round, just, in case. But yeah. Let's see here. Callum says, hello from Newcastle, England, watching while I paint my Stormcast. Dennis says, greetings from Kobe, Japan. There you go. Tempe, Arizona. Macedonia. Estonia. Ben Langen says, morning from Ohio, take your snow back. I assure you, it's not my snow. I wish it, I like the concept of snow. And I like the first couple of snows, kind of, but I tire of it quickly, and maybe that's just because I'm getting older. I'm not sure. Lyon, France, Canada, Cornwall. Alrighty. Peter Pan says, currently working on Savage Orcs. I won at a raffle. That's pretty cool. basically almost free orcs are always good. So yeah, I don't know this. What have I been doing since the last show? Well, I've been working on my Necrons for my kill team. Those Tomb Blades, somebody in the chat, I think last time, said that those Tomb Blades are a real pain in the ass to put together, and they are not wrong. Those, for basically being a tiny little vehicle that's like a little crescent about yay big that's on a little flight stand, there must be 20 parts for each one of those things, or more, and they are tiny. And they're kind of hard to put together. So I've gotten one finished, and the second one is halfway through, and I want to get them done soon because then I'm going to have just a big old marathon of airbrush priming on some afternoon down in the basement and get all those guys done. My Space Marine Scouts for Kill Team done, and then I have a whole bunch of Death Army stuff that needs to be primed as well. Vargeists, Terrorgeist, whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, I'm going to have a big old afternoon of priming coming up soon. I just got to get these Tomb Blades done so that I can kind of go from there. I'm going to move my chair a little bit here. Sorry. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. This afternoon, in theory, I'm going to play a game of Age of Sigmar at my local store with a friend of mine, and he's got a Sylvaneth army, and I'm going to be bringing my Nurgle Chaos, and we'll see how that goes. We've played last time, and it was very close, which was cool. I mean, it came down basically to like one-on-one, and and that was a lot of fun. It was enjoyable, and so I'm looking forward to hopefully a good game this afternoon as well. Let's see here. Hello from Cape Town, South Africa, watching while I plot what Malifaux crew to go for. Yeah, that's a tough one because there's a lot of different crews, and even within each faction there's a lot of sub-crews or whatever, I mean, that kind of ties back into Friday's video. One of the issues that I sort of have to some degree with Malifaux, and it's just a personal thing, is that it's difficult for me because it seems like there are no good guys versus bad guys. It seems like everybody's kind of, you don't have that real dichotomy between the two, and I think that's part of the issue, for me at least. But I know that a lot of people do like Malifaux, and it's a great game system, and models are amazing. I would probably be playing it more. It's just that I'm like the only person I know around here who plays it, so that makes it kind of difficult. So let's see here. Ben Clark says, it's my snow, and let it snow. I work in the Sifto underground salt mine, and I need it to keep working and not get laid off. Oh, like road salt. Okay, that makes sense. I'm like, why would you need more table salt for if it snows? Yeah, I get you. Yeah, road salt. Yeah, that makes sense. We do use a ton of road salt in Wisconsin, so yeah, you will probably be fine. I think, at least this year. Rutledge, Georgia, Lafayette, Louisiana, Texas, Devon, UK. Teddy says, snow just melted away here in Finland after a few days being covered in snow. Jay Griffin says, hello from practically local West Allis, Wisconsin. Yeah, it's about a little bit less than 2 hours away from me at south. So yeah, I think that, I don't know if we are planning on having any more, we'll have more snow eventually. In America, Thanksgiving is coming up on Thursday, where we all get together and watch football and eat a lot of food, and give thanks for being able to do those things. I don't know if it's supposed to snow at all this week. I haven't looked at the weather that closely. I just know it's not supposed to get back to the 60s or anything like that. So it had been unseasonably warm, frankly. We just were all like, well, no, this is great. If it just wants to stay around 50 or 60 for the rest of the winter, that'd be great. But it's not how it works around here, at least not yet. So let's see here. Utah, Perth, Australia, Ottawa, Canada. It's snowing like crazy in Ottawa, Canada, according to JP. That's, I guess, probably sort of to be expected, but yeah, I get that. Vilu says, I just ordered Beastclaw Raiders Icewind Assault. Should get them next week. Not big gamer myself, but love to paint cool minis that I can get my hands on. Beastclaw Raiders Icewind Assault. That sounds familiar, but I don't think I know what it is. But I'm glad that even though you're not a big gamer, I'm glad that you're painting minis and stuff. That's a lot of fun. There's a lot of people who do that, who don't necessarily game, but like to paint. I mean, honestly, I'm not a competitive player, so I don't like, do tons of tournaments and all kinds of things like that. A lot of people who are competitive players do tournaments, and they practice for the tournaments, and so they play weekly or several times a week and all that kind of stuff. I'm not generally that way. I'd be glad to play more than I do, and we're getting there. I mean, we're starting to get more people who are interested in doing that. But honestly, for me, it's one of the big things that, I mean, the painting for me is just more important. But I do enjoy also being able to play as well. Let's see here. Merseyside, UK, Casper, Wyoming. Hello from Stoke-on-Trent. Painting Nurgle cultists and Chaos Space Marines. Fun. I enjoy. I had an itching recently to paint a bunch of Plague Marines, and I have a bunch in the basement just that I've had for years. But I was trying to think, well, like, what can I do with them? And I've got plenty of other stuff that needs to get painted first. So I was like, well, is there a use for them? Could I put them into like a kill team or something like that? And they're still kind of expensive points-wise to put into a kill team. I should try to build a kill team with the Plague Marines I already have, and then see how that kind of goes. And see, because the thing about kill teams, because you're so limited in points, 200 points, there's a mindset that the more models you have, the better you're off. So you need more cheaper models, because then you just get weight of fire, which just means, yeah, these guys are all kind of junky, but there's a lot of them. So, quantity has its own quality at that point. There are other people who are like, if I can just have 5 guys who are super powerful, then I should be able to do fine. And I don't know. I'd like to play some tests back and forth on that. Moderator Matt says it did not snow in Chicago. That's interesting. I kind of thought it would. So that's good to hear. Let's see here. Perth, Australia, St. Louis. Luke Razor asks, ever played Infinity? I have. I have played 2 demos of Infinity. One was at Adepticon, and one was in my local shop, and it was basically painter Sam Lenz, teaching me Infinity. He likes Infinity, and I've got several friends who play Infinity, and they would like it if I would play Infinity, and I don't enjoy the rule set. It's very odd to me, and I don't kind of like it. I don't generally enjoy the artwork. It's very anime, and I'm kind of not into anime. I'm not against people who are into anime. It's just not my thing. Everything's too clean, kind of. And I own some of the models because I bought them years ago, and man, they are hard to build because there are a lot of tiny little metal parts. So I haven't gotten into it, but I know people around here are starting to, and we're starting to see it here and there. So that's kind of cool. Like I said, I know, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know, maybe half dozen or more people, a half dozen to a dozen, just in the state of Wisconsin that I know that play together. Well, not even in the state of Wisconsin, just like in the central Wisconsin part. I know there's also a good amount of people playing it down in the Milwaukee area too, and Madison, which are south of here. So, yeah, I mean, there's an audience for, or not an audience, there's a community for it around here if I wanted to get into it. I just don't seem to dig it. It's just not tripping my trigger, so. Let's see here. Someone just asked what they could do with the pull and pluck foam, because they took pull and pluck trays and popped out all of the foam to be able to put their models in there, and now they have all this foam. And the question is, what could you do with it for terrain? I would say don't use it for terrain. I would tell you now have a near infinite amount of sponge for when you want to do sponge weathering on vehicles or buildings or statues or anything like that. You take that sponge stuff that's in there, you dab it in some dark brown paint, and then you tap it onto your models to basically give it like a chipped, rusty kind of look. Then if you want to, after that dries, you go back over it with some orange and you do a little bit less, so that's the more fresh rust. And then if you really want to get fancy, you go back and do even a little bit less, but with some silver, and then that's the most recent chipped paint. And then you build up the layers like that. That stuff, the foam that comes in those types of cases is great for that kind of stuff. So let's see here. Hello from Bristol, working on 2 pieces of scenery for my cemetery table. Cool. Hello from San Diego. We might be getting snow here in Long Island. Yuck. Well, yeah. All Hearsay main channel says, how did you and Samson meet? That's a very good question. So, years ago, I was... my wife and I were at a tattoo parlor, and we were getting tattoos. And the owner was... I lived above the tattoo parlor at the time. And the owner, her name was Claudine, and she had this employee who, as it turned out, was Sam, who obviously I didn't know because I'm telling you how we met. Anyway, so we're getting a tattoo, and then I see at the other tattoo station, there's the guy over there. He's got like this red tackle box, big one, and it's covered in paint, kind of, and he's got some other stuff, and then he's got a golden demon statue on a little shelf above his station. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that's a golden demon. That's interesting. So I started talking to the guy, and I'm like, that's a golden demon. He's like, oh, yeah. And then he showed me what he had won it with, which I think was an orc, and he had it there. And so we just started talking about it. And it was one of his, I think it was his first golden demon that he'd ever won, back when the Games Day was still in the Chicago area. There used to be one in like LA, Baltimore, and Chicago. Now they don't have any in America. But so anyway, so we kind of struck up a conversation and started talking and things like that. And since I lived right upstairs, I would come down and say hi and talk to him from time to time. And then my friend Eric bought the third edition of Space Hulk when Space Hulk was re-released back in like 2000. This is like 2007, 2008, somewhere around then. So he bought Space Hulk, and he's like, man, I want to find somebody who could paint it for me, because he doesn't think that he's a very good painter necessarily. And I said, well, I know this guy that is looking at getting into painting, professionally and doing some of that stuff. So I put basically Sam and Eric in touch with each other, and that's kind of where it all went from. So we've been friends ever since. And then honestly, between him and his brother John, they kind of taught me 5th edition, 40K. I had been, like I said, interested in GW stuff for quite some time, but that's kind of where it went. But yeah, so it came from there. And then, of course, he's now won lots and lots of golden demons until you basically couldn't get them in America anymore. And now it's been Crystal Brush, the Privateer Press P3 Grandmaster, I think he was in 2014. He's won a bunch of other, every year he's won some, other stuff from that same competition, but he was Grandmaster in 2014. And so it's been, he's been doing really great, and it's been good to see him. And like I said, he was trying to teach me Infinity, and it just didn't quite take off. So let's see here. I'm considering building a bomb shelter. I figure it would be my nerd bunker until the missiles fly. If you could stow away hobby supplies for the apocalypse, what would you save for the end? That's a good question. I would definitely need to get a lot of Vallejo airbrush primer, because I can't find it anywhere around here, and I always have to buy it online. So, I think the internet will go away. So, yeah. But anyway, that's kind of where that is. Yeah, probably the airbrush primers, because that's the stuff that I go through probably the most to some degree, yeah. Let's see here. Marcus says, ooh, live, what perfect timing. Found your YouTube channel this weekend and loving your vids. Oh, well, thank you, Marcus. Every other Sunday morning, I do a live show from 9 a.m. Central to 11 a.m. Central. Usually, I talk to people and answer questions and do stuff like that till about, for the first hour. Then I talk for maybe 20 minutes, or maybe sometimes a touch more, about whatever the subject is, this particular show. And then I go back to answering questions and then wrap it up. This week, I'm talking about a new terrain project that I'm trying to build from scratch, and kind of how I come up with the concepts and kind of things like that, and some of the parts I'm going to use and stuff like that. So I'll be showing that off in a little while, about 40 minutes or so. Let's see here. I just bought some terrain pieces from an aquavarium internet store. A little tad small, but okay, and some bigger rock formations. There's stuff that you can get in aquariums that can work out pretty well, and but it depends. You know what I mean? Not everything. So the scale is never, because they're not building it for modeling. They're just building it to put in a fish tank. The scale is never perfect. So, like a rock formation is a rock formation. It doesn't matter. But if it's something like a castle or something like that, it's not necessarily going to work out sometimes. But, rock formations are good. Matthew Sears says, Eric asks, question mark. I think that's in relation to my story about Sam. No. I'll tell you later on which Eric. Matt. All right, so greeting from Norway. I was wondering, as I'm currently a student programmer, I want to make a paint program for AOS races, make it easier to figure out paint schemes. What should I start with? Well, that's a good question. I mean, you'd have to try to come up with a drawing of... Well, that's a good question. I mean, there used to be a paint, like an army painter thing on the Bolter and Chainsword website. I'm not sure if it's still there anymore, where it had like a line drawing of a Space Marine, like from the front, and then you could go through and pick each segment and then color each segment and then look at it and go, oh, I like that color combination or whatever. I'm not exactly sure how you would do it, though, for... Like, you could do it just for, the Sigmar, Stormcast Eternals, I guess. But you'd have to find a line drawing and go that direction and stuff. And, yeah, it's kind of tough, because I think you'd need a bunch of the artwork drawings, and you'd probably also need for Games Workshop to say that it was okay, and I think that's probably going to be the much harder part than programming it, honestly. So, yeah. Let's see here. Douglas says, Infinity seems to have hovered up people. Probably hoovered, I bet you mean. Infinity seems to have hoovered up people that like a ton of rules, a backlash against streamlining. I like it, but struggle to get people involved for similar reasons that you highlighted. Yeah, a lot of the people that I know online who used to be big into fantasy have switched over to Infinity. And I think I've talked about this before. I think it's interesting because it's like the opposite of fantasy. It's very few models. It's like super anime as opposed to fantasy, but it still has a pretty kind of steep rule set. And I think that's why a lot of those people are doing that. Someone just asked, it just scrolled off the top sadly, but someone just asked about Blood Bowl and whether anyone's interested or excited. I'm looking forward to it. I've pre-ordered it from my local store, and I'll be getting it and looking forward to it. I used to play back in the day, a long time ago, in the early 90s, mid-90s, early 90s. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I've seen the models, and the models look so much more amazing than they used to, so I'm looking forward to that. And just, I don't know, it's a cool game. I've been playing Blood Bowl 2 on my PlayStation 4 on and off, so just to get myself kind of reacquainted with the rules, because that's the thing that's interesting about the PlayStation 4, well, any of the computer versions of the Blood Bowl game, is that they're basically the board game. I mean, you can hear the dice rolling in the background. They put those sound effects in, and you can see it's not like a game like Madden. It's like it's a grid, and you move your guys, and then you're like, okay, I have to run past this guy. This guy could hit me now. He rolls dice, and it's interesting. That's cool. Is there a way to have YouTube inform me when you go live, or do I have to learn manual schedule keeping? That's a good question, Marcus. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to look into that, because it'd be nice. I'm sure there's some people who would like to be reminded. Yeah. Adam, have you ever tried using Tester's Dullcoat lacquer paint to get around the frosting issue? I always paint on Ardcoat and then paint over it with Tester's Dullcoat. I use Tester's Dullcoat in the spray cans pretty much religiously. I've never used it. I've never used Tester's Dullcoat lacquer, because I know you can spray it through an airbrush, but I'm nervous about doing that in the house because I just don't want to have that in my throat and whatnot. But and I also don't want it to completely clog up the airbrush. So I haven't used it yet through an airbrush. So I don't have any good ideas on that, sadly. Let's see here. Marcus says, you have the best videos. I listen to your radio host voice when I'm painting. Makes the mass painting more fun. Do you have any more videos with Sam down the line? Greetings from Sweden. Yeah, actually, we will be doing more videos soon. Originally, we had planned to potentially do a video yesterday on Saturday, and then it would come up soon. But I need to get the studio more dialed in downstairs since I've started filming back in the basement again, and it's not done yet. So hopefully in the coming weeks we'll shoot something, and then we'll definitely you'll be seeing those. But yeah, we definitely those are a lot of fun to do, and people enjoy them, so that's cool. In Turkey, we don't have Games Workshop buy stores or something like that to buy some figures, so I feel sad. Do you have any suggestions? Should I order from internet? Sorry for bad English. No problem. Your English is way better than my Turkish. I would say, yeah, if you don't have any stores around there, any game stores at all, then yeah, there's nothing wrong with ordering from the internet. I did a video years ago, or a couple years ago or so, about supporting your local game store. And if you play at a local game store, you should definitely buy from them. But if you don't have a local game store, then there's not much you can do about it. It just makes sense. But at least you still have the benefit these days to be able to order from the internet, whereas back in the day, if you didn't have a local game store, you just couldn't get stuff. So I'm more of a D&D player, but I wanted to use some terrain pieces. My problem is storage. Do you know of any terrain pieces that are compact and or easily disassembled for storage? I know some people do MDF and they don't glue it together, and they can just like pop it apart and store it flat in between games. I don't know that it works super well once it's been painted, and there are certain kits that just don't do that very well. Like they go together and they have to be held together with glue, otherwise they just won't stand up. So that's kind of a problem. For D&D, I'm trying to think of something modular or something that you could stack inside of each other. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, sadly. No. If you're subscribed, then you should get reminders to your email. I do. Look at your personal settings. Oh, yeah, Ben is talking about with the notifications. I think there's a way to do that. There's a notifications... When you go to the web page, or the YouTube page, where it tells you over... If you're looking at the page, it's over on the right side, and it will show you where the subscription button would usually be. If you're already subscribed, it will say that you're subscribed instead of saying, hey, why don't you click here to subscribe? And then it will show you the number of subscribers that I have, which is currently creeping up on 32,000. Right in between those two things, there's like a little gear. If you click on that gear, you can turn on notifications, I guess, and then that will, I think, shoot you an email or do something like that. Like I get emails very frequently from some of the people that I've subscribed to when they go live. So I don't know if I've turned that on or how it is, but yeah, so it is something that can happen from what I understand. But Gains in Gaming says, how does Tester's dull coat work on metallic paints like Liberator Gold? I find it works fine because the metallicness of the paint is in the flakes that are in the paint. So even though you may have made it, so the metallic is not shiny, it still has the reflective qualities. So I have a fine time with it. The only time I ever go back over a model that I've done dull coat to and put some gloss on it is when I'm doing like Nurgle. So like if they've got like weird guts hanging out or sores or things like that I want to look wet, then I'll put gloss coat over it in just those areas afterwards. So you should get some sheen off of the weird entrails that are hanging out of the big fat guy's gut or whatever, and that looks really cool. But otherwise, yeah, usually dull coat is my like last step, unless I'm doing some grass or some sort of flocking on the base, then that's usually the last step. So let's see here. 2 quick questions. Are you attending LVO, and do you thin the surface primer? Las Vegas Open, which is in Las Vegas, strangely enough, and it comes up in February. I'm probably not going this year. I do want to attend eventually. Right now, I'm probably not going because I don't have any plans to yet. Although I've been thinking about it, but it's coming up, and I just don't think I'm going to have honestly, my main issue is work. Because I spent a week of my vacation in Utah for Valhalla, I just don't have as much vacation right now, so I just don't know that I could pull it off. So yeah, that's kind of where it is right now, for me at least. But I would like to go eventually. And then the second question was about do I thin the surface primer, the airbrush primer. I generally don't. I do find that the white has a tendency to dry on the tip of the airbrush a little bit quicker than the black does, but otherwise I don't generally do that. Patrick says, I'm trying to decide on a 15mm game. I'm thinking about either the starters for All Quiet on the Martian Front or Flames of War. Gosh. So Flames of War is more popular. And you can buy a lot of different models for it that aren't just made by Battlefront, because nobody has a copyright on World War II, so you could buy a Plastic Soldier Company, that kind of stuff. That being said, All Quiet on the Martian Front, I think, is pretty kind of cool. So if you really like the models and the big giant, tripods and stuff, All Quiet on the Martian Front is basically a war game of War of the Worlds, from what I understand. So you could do something like that. If you're looking for more people to play with and more things to be able to buy, or more options for manufacturers online, Flames of War is the way to go. But if you really like the concept of All Quiet on the Martian Front, which I know they have been expanding and getting more and growing, then I guess I'd go that way. So let's see, what was the last game you got to play? Last game I got to play was probably Age of Sigmar, actually, a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I would say it was Age of Sigmar. Actually, it was the battle with same friend of mine that I will be battling with again this afternoon, if everything works out well. So yeah. You can get YouTube notifications by clicking on the bell next to the subscription button. It's not a gear, it's a bell. Good point. Thank you. Let's see here. Thomas says there's some surprisingly nice papercraft terrain out there. Great modular tiles for D&D, and they store pretty flat. Just takes a bit of time of effort to assemble. That's a very good point. I hadn't thought of, or thought to mention the concept of papercraft. I mean, some people will definitely glue or tape papercraft together, but you don't have to. And one of the benefits sometimes of papercraft is that if it's already in color and you have a color printer, you can just print it out and you don't have to paint it or do anything like that. So that can be really helpful. So. Let's see here. Greetings from Minnesota. Do you know if there is much of a war community over here? I would think probably closer to Minneapolis, definitely. But I don't, and I know that there's a bunch of gamers in Rochester. There's a gaming club in Rochester. But I don't know a ton else about Minnesota, sadly. So, let's see here. JP says, try battle systems for modular terrain that can be easily assembled and taken apart for storage. They have sci-fi and fantasy sets. If that's the stuff I'm thinking about, Beasts of Wars had done a bunch of videos about their stuff as well, so you could see examples of it, in video form and things like that. And if it's the stuff I'm thinking about, it's pretty nice. It's like pre-printed, I think it's color on both sides, but it's like thicker tile, like cardboard tiles, and you kind of slot them together and do all kinds of interesting stuff. So that might be the way for you to go. What models or armies make you a better painter? As in, will make you use a combination of techniques? Well, that's a good question. What will make you a better painter? Which armies? I find that one of the reasons that a lot of people go with Space Marines in 40K is because you don't generally have to paint too much skin, because Space Marines are predominantly armored. An army that has more skin to it, whether it's in 40K or whether it's historicals, like if you were going to paint, I don't know, guys who are mostly shirtless, that kind of stuff, depending on how far back you go in historicals. That kind of stuff, I think, can also help, because it can really there's a lot of people who are nervous about painting skin. So taking that and being like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to make it so you have to paint a bunch of skin, that's sometimes something like that pushes your boundaries. I think that can help. Like for me, I'm going to be working on these Necrons soon, and when I do it, I'm going to make them very weathered. They're going to look kind of rusty and weathered and grungy, and I'm looking forward to that, because I haven't done a ton of that. I've done some of it on vehicles, but I haven't done a ton of it on smaller 28mm models, and I think that's going to be kind of interesting. So, Kim says that my iPhone goes ping when you're on. Oh, that's fun. Like ping, that's fun. I get I guess I get some notifications. I get a notification, I think, when Wargamer Viking goes live, and I think I get one when Andy 2D6 goes live, and I think I might get one even when Vince Ventuella goes live. So yeah, that's, if you've got the notifications turned on, that's a way to do it, I guess. How do I start building my first terrain for Age of Sigmar? Well, that's a good question. One thing to do with terrain for Age of Sigmar, like if you wanted to build from scratch, which I'll be talking about some scratch building soon, I would start with foam. Like if you can get, and it turns out you can't get this everywhere, Like if it's warm where you live all the time, then you probably won't be able to get this stuff. But if it gets cold, you should be able to go to not a craft store, but like a hardware store or a do-it-yourself store, DIY store, whatever, and buy that pink foam. Like around here in Wisconsin, we put it on the outside of the houses, and then we put the shingles and whatnot, the siding, over the top of it, and it's pink or sometimes light blue, very dense foam. It's not like the white foam that you get in a piece of electronics when you buy it that's made of little tiny balls. It's much finer stuff than that. High density foam, I think is sometimes what they call it. But it's for, around here we use it a lot for, like I said, insulating houses. So that stuff you can use. You can buy a big sheet of it, and then break it up, because you don't need a 4x8 sheet of it. Break it up so you can fit it in your car, drive it home, and then make hills and stuff like that to your heart's content. You just kind of go at it with a hobby knife, or whatever, and then you just paint it. You're going to want to prime it. You don't want to use rattle can on any kind of foam, because the propellant in the rattle can will eat the foam, which you probably don't want. But if you cover it with like PVA glue, which is like white Elmer's type glue, you cover that with some PVA glue and some water mixed together, then you could spray paint over the top of it, because it wouldn't eat the foam. Or you could just use like latex paint as the base or whatever. There's a lot of different things you can do. But that's a quick and easy way to start, just building little hills and rocky outcroppings and things like that out of that kind of pink foam. That stuff works really, really well. So Stuart says, shout out from Rochester. Well, there you go, Stuart. You should talk to the person who asked before about Minnesota. What is your opinion of recent articles proclaiming 40K responsible for the election of Donald Trump and the assertions made that the Imperium fans are somehow enamored with fascism? Well, I don't... I think that people take things the wrong way. I think that people... I personally think that 40K was written as satire, and it seems, especially if you go back and look at the older stuff, it was written as satire to basically, like, you write, well, if you guys have ever seen RoboCop or the movie version of Starship Troopers or things like that, Paul Verhoeven used satire to talk about society, and he did it in both of those movies. If you take them on just straight face value, then I think you might be taking them wrong. I think some people were looking at it and going, yes, definitely, this is the way that we should live, the way that they do in the Imperium, which is obviously untrue. I mean, they throw 1,000 or 10,000 psychers into basically a wood chipper every day to make it so that every single day to make it so that the Emperor can still keep doing his psychic shenanigans. Gaming is gaming, politics is politics. I don't think that they should. I think it's silly it's certainly silly, I think, to say that this is what got Trump elected. That's a whole different article, and I'm not really here to talk about any of that. But I don't know. I think some people just will like to take things whichever way they want to take them. Everybody likes to take things that they enjoy and make them their own. So, yeah. Matthew says, ugh, I watched RoboCop 2 yesterday. Now, Matt, that doesn't make any sense. Because there never was any sequels to RoboCop. There was the original RoboCop. And by say original, I mean the only RoboCop. They only ever made that one RoboCop movie. They certainly didn't make any sequels to RoboCop, and there was never a reboot either, by the way. So I think that maybe, did you fall down and hit your head? I think that's what actually happened. There was no RoboCop 2. There was certainly not a RoboCop 3. There were not any Canadian RoboCop movies or TV shows. And there was certainly never a remake with Michael Keaton. So, just FYI, for those of you who are paying attention. Let's see here. Extruded polystyrene. The stuff is made out of spheres is called just expanded polystyrene. Aha, so it's extruded versus expanded. The stuff with the little balls is expanded, and extruded is the pink stuff. That's the stuff that's really easy to carve and you can make good terrain out of. Can propellant sprayed on foam makes for a great alien scorched landscape, though. It does, as long as you don't screw it up and go too far. But yeah, you can do really kind of interesting stuff very quickly with it, but if you go a little too far, then it's not so good. Diaz52 says Rochester, Minnesota or Rochester, New York. I was talking about Rochester, Minnesota before. Let's see here. Starship Troopers is the best Imperial Guard movie ever. To some degree, yes. Good morning from the frozen wastes of central Alberta, Canada. Nice. Let's see here. There are 3 RoboCops. No, I'm pretty sure there's not. I think they only ever made that first one. Dawn Treader UK says, I have a Blood Angel army, Epic and 40k, and a gaming board and scenery, but nobody to play with. I'm 34 and been disconnected for years. Don't really get on with the usual 40k hobbyists. Well, one way to do it, I think, is then to try to start teaching the friends that maybe don't currently play war games. If you've got enough stuff to be able to do both sides, then you kind of teach those guys or girls or whomever to do that kind of stuff. It's one of the benefits to skirmish games, in my opinion, is that you can easily build 2 small armies, because skirmish armies are generally small, and kind of go from there. So, let's see here. Marcus says, it's the same with Terminator 2, which was the last of the series, but some people keep claiming there are sequels. What gives? No, I agree. Yeah, they only made the first 2, and then after that they never made any more movies. Certainly not with Christian Bale. Peter says, Highlander 3 is the only film I've seen which totally denies all knowledge of the second film in their trilogy. Oh, Highlander 3. Ugh, yeah, that was, I watched that in a theater one time with some friends. We saw that in the theater. We had all snuck in some whiskey in our tummies, and it didn't help. So, yeah, that was not so good. Let's see here. Greetings from Watsky, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix, evidently. Thanks for these live chats. They really help painting stamina. Sorry to hear the confirmation on Tomb Blade's difficulty. Have 3 to do. Yeah, they are a little bit of a bear, frankly. So, take some time. And also make sure that you determine what your additions are going to be, because there's like shield veins, there's a nebula scope, and a shadow loom, which are evidently you can use the shield veins and then one of the other things, but you can't use the other 2 things at once. You can either go nebula scope or shadow loom. You can't do both. So yeah, that's just the way it works. Let's see here. The second RoboCop, they made an ED209-esque bot with serial killer's brain, and the third was a cheesy joke with samurai. Yeah, I don't think that happened. I'm pretty sure that's not. Yeah. Let's see here. Gary Sheen. Wikipedia shows RoboCop 3. Wikipedia is frequently wrong, by the way. Model Mixer TV. Do you think Games Workshop will re-release the remaining factions that still are being sold with square bases? Dispossessed, Brayherds. If yes, which ones do you think would be next? Re-release. That's a good question. I mean, like, I just purchased from their website recently Ungor Raiders. Well, just Ungors, which you can build as Raiders. Raiders just mean they have bows, because they were super cheap, and I needed to get something else. And you got anyway. They came on square bases, but they also came in those weird white boxes with no artwork on them. So I don't know. Maybe they're going to re-release them in boxes at some point, because when they would do that, like a lot of the older models that have been released now for Age of Sigmar have got the new Age of Sigmar style boxes on them, and they come with round bases instead of squares. But I don't know if they're going to do that with all of things or not. I suppose it completely depends on how well they sell. So there's that. Let's see here. Oh, and it is Awa Toke 2K. Sorry. See, in Wisconsin, we have a lot of Indian names for a lot of our cities, like Oconomowoc and Wauwatosa and things like that, which other people can't say. And evidently in Arizona, there's some that I can't say currently either. So with Games Workshop, Vermilio says, with Games Workshop saying they're going to be doing more Lord of the Rings stuff, what are the chances they start collecting boxes for it? Ooh, that's a good question. The thing is about the Lord of the Rings stuff that they've done in the past is it's all been fine cast, I think, wasn't it? Was there any plastics? Because if there's any plastics, they could probably do a start collecting box, and it would be smart of them to do so. But if most of it's fine cast or some other kind of resin, and from what I understand, the Lord of the Rings stuff that they're going to be doing going forward is going to be done by Forge World. So if that's the case, Forge World's probably not going to do any start collecting boxes, especially if they're using actual Forge World resin. Now the upside is if they start using Forge World resin and stop using Finecast resin, everybody will be happier who's involved. But we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so I don't know that there's going to be any kind of start collecting boxes for it, but it would be kind of cool if there were. Well, there must have been some plastic models for that game. Weren't there plastic orcs at the very least? I never played it, so I'm not quite sure. Let's see here. What cool trash would you reuse as terrain? Oh, let me tell you. So, a lot of... Anytime you get something that's got like a plastic, like a blister pack, or if you get something that's got like a plastic window in it so you can see the product inside, if you hold on to that plastic, that sheet of plastic, you can use it as like broken windows on ruined buildings. You just like make your building out of whatever you're making out of, let's say foam core, and then where the where the window is, maybe it's all busted and everything like that, so you've got a window that looks like this. Okay, this is the window part. You can just glue a piece of plastic in there that you cut out, and then, you know, put cracks in it and stuff like that, and it will look like broken glass. So if you save some of those pieces, throw them in a drawer. Don't leave them all around the house. Your wife will get angry. But yeah, it's stuff like that. It will work out too pretty well for you. There's lots of things like that. Let's see here. What's a Battle Force AOS box? I haven't looked at them super close, but from what I understand, like always around Christmas, they'll put out these bigger Battle Forces. So it's basically like a bigger start collecting box, from what I understand. I don't know what the prices are on them. I haven't looked super close yet, but I know there's one for the Sylvaneth, and there's, I think, one for... I know there's one for the Stormcast. I think they're putting out 4 or 6 of them just for Age of Sigmar, and they do it like right before Christmas. And it's just basically a much bigger set. Like the $85 start collecting box is, you know, maybe 16, 17 characters. The Battle Forces maybe closer to 30. So, you know, it's just a bigger group. So, let's see here. New dwarfs soon in Age of Sigmar, and we still need start collecting box for Fire Slayers. Yeah, I agree. I do think that they should have made the start collecting box for Fire Slayers, because those big giant lizards that they run around on, those magma droths or whatever, they're pretty cool. Peter Pan says the ruins of Osgiliath were plastic. I pronounced it properly. Yes, they were. I showed those off a couple, I don't know how many different episodes ago, but yeah, they were plastic. I just don't know if any of the models, like the guys, the people, like I said, I swear to God I have a box of orcs somewhere in the basement, like Uruk-hai, actually, not regular orcs, but I don't remember if they were plastic or not. There is, Dennis, the Balrog was plastic. The Balrog was plastic? I guess I never saw one of the Balrogs in person. Huh. Let's see here. Brian says, greetings from Kingsport, Tennessee. Just wanted to let you know I stumbled upon your videos because of X-Wing, and I'm now interested in getting into Age of Sigmar. Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, I mean, I still do play from time to time, X-Wing. I haven't played it as much recently, but I do still play it. It's a really good gateway game for getting people into games like Age of Sigmar, exactly, because you can learn about wargaming and all that kind of stuff without having to build and paint. And then once you kind of, if you're the kind of person like me who's like, oh yeah, you know, building and painting is really kind of interesting, well, then you can start moving into a game like Age of Sigmar. So it works out really, really well. Let's see here. I was told Tomb Kings from Warhammer Fantasy is no more from my local store. Did Games Workshop really scrap an entire faction due to fluff lore, or was it a business decision? From what I understand, it was a business decision. Business decision, which is hard to say early in the morning. They were, from what I understand, relatively low selling, and they've also gotten rid of another faction as well. They're not the only ones. Bretonnians, maybe? Empire? I don't know. One of the other factions they got rid of too. Now, the thing is that they may not completely have gotten rid of them. I mean, you know, they may come back with that faction later on. But I think it was basically a paring down. There were so many factions in Warhammer Fantasy that they just were like, we need to cut back some of them. And since there's a bit of redundance to some degree in Tomb Kings versus, say, Vampire Counts, all under the umbrella of death, I think that... that's a terrible umbrella, too. The umbrella of death. That is really, it's just basically bones. Doesn't keep you dry at all. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I mean, technically, the War Scrolls are still available. So if you have Tomb King stuff, or if you can find it on eBay, which, you know, good luck at this point, You can still play with it, certainly, because it's still in the app. It's still on the, you can still download the PDFs and all that stuff for the War Scrolls. It's just that they're not making the product anymore or selling it, from what I understand. So, Corn Bloodbound, according to Big Dick Cheney. Well, yeah, that's also one of the new Battle Force boxes. That's for certain. Yeah, that's one of them. Let's see here: Trees, Orcs, Sigmarines, and Bloodbound. That's must be the 4 of them. Yep, gotcha. Let's see. One big battle force for each Grand Alliance. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good idea. Because otherwise, yeah, people would be bummed out. Uncommon says, Adam, are you the king of tabletop? No, not even by a long shot. I might be the uncle of tabletop, though. I could easily do that. Yeah. Let's see here. Alex Williams just checked his DVD collection. There's definitely only one RoboCop, only 2 Terminators, and The Hobbit was also just one film. I think my wife would tell you they never made a Hobbit movie, but they definitely made those first 3, Lord of the Rings movies. But, let's see here. Wow. The Age of Sigmar Battle Force boxes are $300 to $370 US, and they broke down the pricing, and they seem like a good value. Holy crap, that's more than I thought. They must be a lot bigger than I thought, too. Like I said, I just noticed that they put them up recently. I haven't looked, too close at them because I'm not going to buy one because I already have all the models I need. Thank you, but it's good. Like they've done that stuff for 40K in the past too. They used to have these big mega forces, usually 2 per Christmas. There'd be like I know there was a Necron one several years back. There's almost always a Space Marine one, but yeah. Let's see here. Durelius says, I'm converting a Deathcopter to a Gyrocopter because Games Workshop want too much for a Dwarven one. The Dwarven ones are cool looking, but yeah, I bet they probably do want too much. Deathcopters are cool too. Yeah, that sounds like a fun project, actually. So, let's see here. The Lord of the Rings line is mostly plastics. The new releases are most of the time fine cast. Yeah, well, I think fine cast is cheaper for them to produce, yet they still seem to charge more for it to some degree. Gains and Gaming says Death Umbrella dad joke was a dad joke for the ages, which is interesting because I'm not a dad. So, but I appreciate that I can kind of do that kind of stuff. All the basic troops were plastic, and the Balrog, the wings were plastic, similar to the Fell Beasts. Well, that makes sense. Like, yeah, trying to make a wing that size out of resin of any kind would be a pain in the rear, but making them out of plastic would be easier. That makes more sense. Operation Mad Dog says, if you want Tomb Kings, check out Mantic's Empire of Dust. Yes, they did make a kind of Egyptian-themed undead line, probably in response to Games Workshop stopping production on Tomb Kings. So they were like, well, heck, why not? So, yeah. Let's see here. Did you actually sell your own paint miniature? How do you set that price? I've never sold any miniatures that I've painted. Anything I paint, I always keep. I've sold plenty of miniatures that I bought and then never used, or I bought and then built and then didn't do anything with them, but I've never sold any that I actually... I've never sold any that I've actually painted, but plenty of people do. It's hard, because you have to figure out what to sell it for, things like that. Basically, there's not a lot of call for painted miniatures sometimes. Like an entire painted army, totally. People are interested in buying that. If you just paint, like let's say you wanted to be like a pro painter and you wanted to start doing some stuff just with the idea that people, like you want to paint it to get better, but then you want to sell it because you want to recoup some of your money. Sam used to do this years ago. He used to paint, like when a new codex would come out, he would paint a bunch of HQ units for that codex. Like the Blood Angels would come out with something. He'd paint a couple of, chaplains or whatever the heck they have in the Blood Angels. He'd paint some of their HQ units and do a really fancy job and then put them up on eBay for like starting at $75 or $80, and then people would bid up because people will buy a fancy HQ unit for their army, but if they buy they're not going to buy like a single tactical squad that's sort of fancy, because then you're like, well, you're going to have this one tactical squad that's painted really nice, and then you're going to have all the rest of the stuff that I did. It's going to look weird. But if you had like one HQ unit, well, of course, that guy would look really good and be fancy, and the rest of my guys can look kind of schlubby, and it's fine. That makes more sense. So that's the best piece of advice I can give you if you do want to start painting stuff to sell on eBay, and if you're getting better at it, start with HQ units and see what you can get. And if nobody buys it at $75, maybe relist it for $60 and see how that works or whatever. But you also have to figure out to some degree Like, is it worth my time? Like, I spent 20 hours on this, but nobody wants to buy it at $40. Well, that's not very good return on your investment. So, yeah, it's hard to do. Do any of you guys know if I will be able to buy Warhammer Fantasy anywhere? I'm looking to get into Mordheim and think some of the models might be awesome to use. Well, Jiffy is back. There's not really Warhammer Fantasy anymore. Now it's called Warhammer Age of Sigmar. You might be able to find some older stuff on... Well, I mean, you'll be able to find older stuff on eBay all the time. A lot of the old stuff from Warhammer Fantasy has just been brought into Age of Sigmar, so you can still do that too. If you're looking to get into Mordheim, it'd be good to use some of that stuff. I would also tell you to look at a company called Reaper. Reaper Miniatures, they make a lot of stuff. On their website, they have this great little feature called a miniature finder, I think it's what it's called. Something like that. Figure finder? Figure finder. Anyway, you go on there, and so if you're working in something like Mordheim, and you're like, I need a guy with a crossbow, or I need a woman with a staff and a sword, or something like that. And then you can just go, and you just check boxes, and then it goes through their humongous backlog of all the different models ever, and it's like a database, and then you'll go, oh, well, there's these 6 models that fit those criteria, and then you can look at it and go, oh, that one's cool, and then you can either buy it direct from them, or look around at your local store, or hit eBay, or online retailers, or whatever's going on. But it's a nice place. They've been making models for so long, they've made so many thousands of models that it's really kind of cool when you're like, I need a wizard who's holding a book and a knife, and you're like, okay, and you can look for that kind of stuff, and then, it works out well. A game like Frostgrave, which I'd tell you to look into Frostgrave before you look into Mordheim personally, but that's just me. Yeah, you could look into that stuff and see how that works out. But there's a lot of, you just need like specific models. Whereas with the Games Workshop, a lot of time you're like, oh, I like this model, but he comes in a box of 10 or 9 other models, and you don't necessarily need to buy the entire box. So it's up to you. But let's see here. Magnus the Red model, what do you think? 8th edition soon. Do you think the 40k story will move on hugely? Exciting. I've only barely looked at the Magnus the Red model. I don't know a ton about him. But I'm glad that they went ahead and keep cranking some of those things out. That's really cool. 8th edition. 8th edition's related to 40k, for those of you keeping track at home. I said several times in the last year and a half that 8th edition would come out this summer. Well, it is now nearly winter, so evidently I was wrong. I told people to mark my words. If you marked my words, you need to let me know that my words didn't work out, which is fine. I think that's part of... I think if Tom Kirby, who was the old CEO, I think if he was still there, we would have had an 8th edition this summer. I think the new guy, Roundtree, Kevin Roundtree, I think he has realized that putting out a brand new edition of 40k every 2 years will make people very angry, so they decided to not do that. There have been a lot of rumors that there is a new edition coming out in spring, potentially. So we'll see how that goes. There's also a lot of rumors that the new edition is going to be streamlined to some degree. Not to the degree of Age of Sigmar, but it is going to be a little bit less difficult than the current 7th edition rules are. So that will be interesting to see how that goes. It will be an interesting time to be a player, I think. So we'll see. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. I am excited to kind of see what's going to happen next. But it'll be a little while, probably at least until... It's going to be at least until, like I said, probably spring from the rumors that I see when I look online. You probably see them too if you look for that kind of stuff. It's not like I have any people at Games Workshop feeding me rumors and telling me things, because they don't ever seem to talk to me. So, yeah. But yeah, as far as the storyline, something's got to happen, I think. I don't know what. I don't know if the Emperor dies. That could be really screwy. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know that it's going to be as... rip off the Band-Aid kind of big, huge, giant change as Age of Sigmar was from Fantasy, but it will be interesting to see what's going to happen. So, does anybody have any suggestions on where to find really hard to find early 90s out-of-print bits other than eBay? No. Not really, Eric. There's not... I mean, pretty much honestly, yeah, if it's not eBay... well, Bartertown. You might find some stuff at Bartertown, which is basically like a forum... like a forum website, and then people just trade things on there or sell things or whatever, and you might find some stuff there, but I've never really used it a ton. I think I bought something from some guy once years ago from Bartertown, and since then I haven't really messed with it. So Josh McCarthy says Adepticon sign-up is tomorrow. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Tomorrow's Monday, yes. Any events, classes that you're looking forward to? Honestly, I have not looked at the events or classes. I was planning on doing that this afternoon, but I am planning on signing up. They've changed things a bit this year. It used to be that you definitely wanted to get in as soon as possible if you wanted to get a swag bag and all that kind of stuff. And now you still do want to do that if you want to get a swag bag, but you can also instead decide not to get a swag bag. It used to be that like the first 1,000 people that signed up got swag bags and the other people didn't, but you all had to pay the same price to get in. Well, now they've got like a $30 option, which is just like, you don't want a swag bag, you just want to come and play games and do tournaments and things like that, and you just want to buy a badge. You don't care about getting a bag full of stuff that, frankly, you may not use, you know. I've showed off the swag bag the last couple of years at Adepticon, you know, in my Adepticon booty videos, but honestly, there's nothing in there that I was like, oh wow, this is super, you know, worth the price of admission. It's cool stuff, and some of it I've messed with, and it's nice to have a couple of little extra paints here and there, and a lot of the stuff that Privateer Press puts, like, they dump in like starter boxes and things like that, which is really cool, but I don't know. So I'm not sure if I'm going to, I don't know. I might just do the regular $30 and sign up for some classes, potentially. We'll see how that goes, but yeah. Dorelius says the Rubik's Terminators are looking awesome. Yeah, a lot of those new Thousand Sun models that they just showed off recently, I thought are pretty cool. I'm not going to buy any particularly because I don't. I've never played Thousand Suns, but I was always regular. I was usually more Nurgle, but I'm glad that they're doing that because honestly, those guys have been underserved for a long time. If you wanted to get Thousand Suns for Chaos Space Marines, you pretty much bought regular Chaos Space Marine box, and then there was like an add-on of like the different heads and some other junk, and that was it. And now they've got some really sweet-looking models, so that's really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out. Let's see here. Marcinogen says, screw Thousand Suns, bring on some new noise marines like the old ones with the musical instruments. I think that, yeah, I did used to, they're cheesy and crazy, but I did like to used to see the old noise marines with the guitars, the big electric guitars and stuff that they used to use as their sonic weapons. They remind me a little bit now of Mad Max Fury Road. There's that big dude, it's on top of that vehicle, and he's wearing the long underwear and just playing the guitar with the flamethrower on it. That was pretty cool. Let's see here. What else have we got? Once per month, in my club, they say is the day that people come and trade, sell bits. Yeah, there are. Some shops do have swap meets for bits, which is sometimes a good way to work it out, but it's not something you see that much these days. I don't know why. Let's see here. Not miniature related, but I'm interested in the 40k stories and lore. There are so many books available and I'm lost. Where should I start and get a good overview of that universe? I would tell you, honestly, to start with the first couple of Horus Heresy books. If you do a search on Google and just try to find out what order you should read the Horus Heresy books in, you'll find some information that'll help. There's like the first 3 or 4 actually are chronologically in order. And they're, you know, and then the rest of them are all just different stories that happen around different times and things like that. But if you want to read those, you can kind of learn about what happened to get 40k to where it is now. Those books happened in 30k, which is, you know, roughly the 31st millennium, and now the storyline is in the 41st millennium. After that, then maybe pick some, like there's an Ultramarines omnibus that's got like 3 or 4 Ultramarine books in it. There's Space Hulks or Space Wolves 1 that's pretty good. If you want to start getting into, probably my favorite books that are not early Horus Heresy are probably Eisenhorn and Ravnor, which are the Inquisitors. They're 2 books for the Inquisitors, and they're nice thick books. Those are really, really super good, and you get to find out a lot about the, you know, just society in general and that kind of stuff. Whatever. Let's see here. I sold painted minis once for a nice price in batches of 4 or 5. Doing it again, I would do a whole troop for more interest. If I build and paint 5 officers, most bolt action players have no use for that. Yeah, see, that's the trick, is that when you build, you have to kind of think about, like, as a player, like, what would you buy if you were going to buy something that somebody else painted? Like I said, HQ units work out great because you can make a really fancy HQ unit, and then, you know, it makes sense that he looks better than or different than the rest of the guys. The thing that I have a problem with, and this is because I'm sort of anal retentive on some of that stuff, is that I wouldn't want somebody else to paint it for me because then maybe the basing wouldn't match up. Like, if my entire army is based on desert and I find this really cool guy on eBay and his basing is, you know, city streets, well, that's going to be kind of weird. So, I don't know. Not everybody thinks that way, but I do. So, yeah, that's something to think about. If you're going to be painting for, like, on spec, something like that for you know, eBay, and you're going to paint HQ units, maybe put them standing on, like, a cool rock or something like that, because then it doesn't have to match quite as closely. You know, like, if everybody else in their army is on, like, urban streets, well, what are you going to do? But if they're on, like, grassy plains and then you have a rock, well, like, I just found a rock to stand on in the grassy plains, you know, that kind of thing. It could work out pretty well. The noob painter says Doof Warrior. Yes, the Doof Warrior was the guy with the big guitar and the flamethrower in Mad Max. That was awesome. Let's see here. Jason says, I'm using Vallejo primer, but it seems to rub off when you touch the model after it dries. Am I not waiting long enough for curing? Switch back to GW spray primer for now. I've never had a problem with it rubbing off. Are you putting it on with airbrush or brushing it on? And also, what kind of primer? I use airbrush surface primer, and it usually sticks pretty well. But you do want to definitely let it sit at least... I usually let it sit almost 24 hours before I start touching it with stuff. I mean, honestly, you should really try not to touch your models too much. One of the reasons that I always take my models and use a piece of poster putty and stick them to a pill bottle, just because I have lots of pill bottles hanging around, other people use dowels or whatever, is because then you have a nice handle to hold on to your model, but you don't actually have to touch the model. Part of the problem with touching the model is that, A, you can possibly rub off some of the paint or the primer, which is a bummer. Secondly, our fingers have oils in them, so the oils can get onto so if you touch over the primer, even if you don't rub the primer off, you can get oils on it, and the paint will not maybe necessarily stick to the oil as well, or it'll bead on the oil. Using acrylic paints, there's a lot of water in there, and oil and water don't mix. So there's all these kind of issues like that we kind of have to watch out for, frankly. So that's why I try not to touch my models too much, especially when they're primed. But definitely, if you're going to use any kind of primer like that, you definitely want to let it sit for at least 24 hours before you start messing with it. If it's like a brush on or even like airbrush primer. Most rattle can primers should stick pretty well. I like to use, for rattle can, I like to use Krylon. They make a camouflage line, and those are great primers because they also stick to plastics really well. So if you're using plastic models, they work great for that. Marcus says the Eisenhorn trilogy is fantastic. One of the few 40K books I've read, though, so I'm kind of biased. Yeah, Marcus, look up Ravenor, too. That's another trilogy. Ravenor's another Inquisitor. It's super, super good. They're really, really good books. I like both of those series. Also was Gaunt's Ghosts mentioned. Such a good series. I read a couple of those, but it was a long, long time ago, and I should go back and reread some of those. Like Gaunt's Ghost, First and Only, that kind of stuff. Those would be really kind of cool. Diaz52 says, Krylon Camo Ultra Flat Paint with Fusion Technology. Yes, that's exactly the stuff that I like to use because it sticks really super well to plastic. It's super, super flat matte, so paint, like it's a very good surface to paint on, which a primer should always be a good surface to paint on. Comes in black, dark brown, 2 different tan colors, and 2 different green, kind of olive drab sort of military camo colors, which makes sense for camouflage, but it works out really well. Necronaut Drummer says, I use self-etching auto primer for metal models. They have acid in the paint that etches into the metal, giving it a little bit more bite. Yep, self-etching auto primer, sandable auto primer also works pretty well on metal or plastic. That's kind of honestly, like that was the first spray that I really used was sandable auto primer. In America, it was a company called Duplicolor, I believe. You could get it like at AutoZone and places like that. Let's see here. Citadel brush-on primer rubs off too. Stick with spray on unless hard up. Yeah, brush-on primer is tough. Well, it is actually, that's the trick, is it's not that tough. Sometimes it can be kind of fragile. So, yeah, it's difficult. I try to if I absolutely, well, I mean, having an airbrush helps a lot because then I can prime in the winter. Like in the winter, I can't go outside with a rattle can because it won't work. So having an airbrush allows me to still spray prime in the winter, which is great. Back before I owned an airbrush, the last couple of warm days of fall, I would be outside trying to get as much stuff sprayed for priming as I possibly could so that I would have stuff to paint over the course of the winter. Now I can pretty much prime whenever, and I'm glad for it. So an airbrush is a good thing to use. There's been some talk recently about using gesso, Gesso, which is used in fine art for you. When you make a canvas, you coat it in gesso because oil paint that goes on a canvas over time will eat the canvas. There's acids or something in the oil paint, and it will eat the canvas. So the gesso is like the layer between the actual canvas itself and the oil paint. So it also makes it so that the paint does not soak into the canvas as much. Even if you used acrylics, which wouldn't have the same acids that oil paints would, you still want to use gesso because otherwise you put on your first layer of paint and it's going to soak right into the canvas and then you have to put on another layer. This way you put this gesso on and it's almost like a primer for canvases. So yeah. Let's see here. Citadel brush on. I use pill bottles to hold while painting and use disposable gloves, but I don't wait the 24 hours. That's probably why. Yeah, that could be. The disposable gloves are not as big of a deal. I use them for from airbrushing sometimes, but sometimes I don't because then I just go, well, I'll wash my hands later, because you're going to get spray on your hands when you're airbrushing. But it's just acrylic and you can wash it off with soap and water. It's easy. The disposable gloves are nice because then you won't be touching the models and getting oils on them. It's a good point. But yeah, if you don't wait 24 hours, the other thing I do too is I frequently like to use a hairdryer on stuff that I've primed. I don't know if it cures it faster or if it sets it easier, but I do use it just to kind of, I don't know. I maybe it's superstition, but that's what I frequently use. Shikaku says, I switched to Badger airbrush primer. Works better than Vallejo for me. I've got some of the Badger Steinelrez, I believe is the name. Steinelrez. I've got some of that stuff, and I've used it a little bit, but I've been sticking mostly with Vallejo. I'm not sure why. Just because I'm used to it, I guess. But I know that recently Steinelrez also cranked out a lot of different colored airbrush primers now. So if you were painting, let's say, Blood Angels, they've got a dark red, so you could start with the dark red and then highlight lighter reds if you wanted to from there. Or they've got dark, olive drab and stuff like that if you're doing military. So that's cool. Steinelrez has been doing that. You've got those same types of things with Vallejo airbrush primer, from what I understand. I just bought some sand-colored airbrush primer from Vallejo and some military green, but it's cool that Badger's getting into that too, because originally when Steinelrez first came out, I think it was just black, gray, and white. Those are the only three colors. So Mac Attack says that gesso is good for Reaper bones. So some people have said that Reaper bones, if you use a spray can for primer on them, it never gets completely dry. It's always sort of tacky, and I don't know if that's something. I've never had that problem. But now that I come to think of it, the few Reaper bones that I've painted, I don't think I've used a spray can. I think I used airbrush. So I should try gesso on Reaper bones and see how it works. The thing about gesso, at least these days, gesso in the modern era, original gesso I think was basically like chalk that was ground up with something. I don't know what it was, but it's stuff I'm trying to remember from when I was in college. But nowadays gesso is basically like an acrylic paint with some kind of heavy pigment in it. So being acrylic paint and with Reaper bones being very bendy, I think that plastic paint with plastic bendy models might be a good thing because then they won't crack when you bend it as opposed to other things. So yeah, I should try that. I should try putting some gesso on some Reaper bones and see what the result looks like. Necronaut Drummer says, I'm painting up Star Wars command figures, basically army men and made from the same type of plastic. It's HDPE plastic, like milk jug plastic. Can't find a primer that works awesomely. That's interesting. Star Wars Command. I'm not familiar with that game. That's not like Imperial Assault. I've seen plenty of people who paint Imperial Assault, so I don't know what that stuff would be. I would try gesso, honestly, Necronaut Drummer, and see what you think about it. You'd have to go to probably an art supply store. The trick about gesso that I've found, if you're interested in it, originally I read someplace like, oh, you want to thin it and put it on. And when I thinned it, it didn't work. It would go on and it would just bead and separate over the model. So I just put it on 1-to-1, just straight well, not even 1-to-1. I just put it on straight out of the pot, put it directly onto the models, and then I put it on what I thought was too thick. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. And this was a test model, so it didn't bother me that much. But when it dries, it contracts so much that it gets down into all the cracks, and it doesn't really get rid of much. Like, I guess you could put on way too much, and then it would probably obscure, but putting it on thick, you're going to look at it and go, that's too much. And then when it dries, it's not going to be too much. So give it a try with Reaper Bones models. They cost like $3 a piece. Give it a try with that or some other test model and see what you think about it. But see if gesso works well with Reaper Bones, or in these cases, these Star Wars command figures. That might be something to do. So, Siri says, have you started your Stormcast Eternals yet? No. They're my third army, and so they're purchased in a box. And once I get further along with my Nurgle Chaos guys and my Death guys, then I will probably start working on them. But I don't want to get too split up. You know what I mean? Like, I've got 1,000 points right now of Chaos painted, and I will soon have 1,000 points of Death painted. And then I've got a couple other bigger models for each that I want to kind of get. I don't know if I'm going to wait till I get both of those armies to 1,500 points, and then I'll start working on my Stormcast, or maybe I'll get both of those armies to 1,000 points, and then start working on Stormcast. I'm not exactly sure. So, yes. What happens if you spray prime in cold temperatures? Very frequently, you get very powdery, like dusty look to the model. Sometimes it does not stick very well, so you'll get a dusty model, looking model, but it'll actually be dusty. Like, you can just brush it off with your fingers, and it won't stick very well. The actual priming itself, the cans need to be warmed. There are some people that will take their rattle cans, put them into a bowl of hot water in the house, then go outside, quickly prime, bring all that stuff back into the house, and kind of alternate back and forth that way, warming up the can, spraying, going outside, and then coming back out. The downside to that is you're still going to get a good amount of that propellant stink in the house, because the thing about the models, you always want the models to be able to outgas. Like, the propellant gets into the paint, it sticks to the models, and if you smell the model, you're not smelling the paint, you're still smelling the propellant that's coming out through the paint. So you want to, usually when you spray prime a model, you want it to sit outside for a while. I've never tried to do it this way. I've read about people who've basically heated up the cans in hot water, like in a bucket or a bowl or something like that, and then sprayed outside in the cold and then brought everything back in. You're still going to get some of that stink in the house, some of that propellant, which is bad, but it might work. But yeah, I'm not sure. Let's see here. Yeah, a weird grainy texture. That's gesso means chalk in Italian. Well, there you go. See, there's chalk in it. That makes sense. Well, there used to be. I don't know if there still is, but at least back in the day there used to be. Adam, what do you think of painting Chaos Dwarves in a white color, similar to Star Wars Stormtroopers? And would you prime black or white? I think if you were going to paint something that was going to be white, you'd be smart to prime it in white, honestly. Like with Stormtroopers, it's a little tough because you want the creases in between the armor to be dark, but you could probably still pull it off. I would still probably prime Stormtroopers white, and then do some washes, and then go back and highlight up like the flat parts of the armor. Do some darker washes to kind of get into the crevices and to darken things up, and then highlight up the part. That's what I would do probably. But yeah, I almost never prime in white because almost nothing that I ever paint is ever really that light. I don't paint, elven princesses, and I don't paint, space marine or stormtroopers and things like that. So, and with skeletons, I always start as like a bone color as my primer, and then go from there. But yeah. Straight white. I've never really painted too much that's just been completely straight white. Necronaut says Star Wars Command is kind of wargaming for little kids using 1/35th scale figures. Oh, okay, that's cool. I guess that makes sense why they would be made out of a plastic that's sort of difficult to paint on then, kind of things. Yeah. Hello, I'm trying to find a way to regularly switch between square and round bases for my miniatures to play on multiple platforms like Age of Sigmar, Kings of War. Do you have any suggestions for that? You could try magnets, little tiny, those super, they're called rare earth magnets or neo, neomibdium, neoblim, there's something like that. Rare earth magnets. They're very tiny, very powerful. You want to be careful with them, but you could try doing that. You like drill into the bottom of a foot on, like, let's say an orc, and then put a magnet in there. That might be a way to do it. You can also use pins, maybe. Depends on how frequently you want to go back and forth and switch them, but that's a possibility as well. Let's see here. Star Wars command figures try Krylon with fusion. It's meant for odd sorts of household plastics, such as HDPE-based lawn furniture. That's a good point. Krylon with fusion would probably do a pretty good job on that stuff too, because it is. That's the reason that they make their fusion technology stuff at Krylon, is for basically painting weird stuff like lawn furniture and stuff that regular spray paints don't like to stick to. So yeah, that's a good point. You might want to try that. Neodymium. Yes, that's the way it is. Yeah. Let's see here. It's not letting me moderate the chat for some reason, but please do not put spray paint cans in the microwave. Oh yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. It's not letting you moderate the chat. That's weird, Matthew, because you had the little moderator thing next to your thing. Well, all right. Let's try to... Let's see here. I'm going to remove you as moderator, which is an invalid request. Huh. Well, we're going to have to figure out how to fix that next time. Matt, let me know how that works out. I don't know what's going on. There must be some sort of server issue going on. All right, let's see here. All right, so speaking of terrain, I'm going to start talking about the thing that I was going to talk about. So we're going to switch over to this camera over here. Yoink. Okay, so, well, okay, first I'm going to do this. So this is a drawing that I was doing, so what I want to do is I want to build a salvaged, you know, in America, when you're driving around, you will see these big, huge LCD, or LED most likely, video billboards that people, you know, you'll see a billboard and then it will change to a different billboard, and you're seeing it more and more, where instead of just being a big painted thing or a big whatever printed thing, it's actually a giant screen. Okay, so so that's really interesting. My idea in a post-apocalyptic situation is that somebody might have taken one of these and decide to bring it to their shanty town for whatever reason. So I wanted to, basically the concept was I wanted to build a video screen that had kind of a post-apocalyptic thing going on. Now, at Adepticon this year, I got a... what do you call it? I got a video screen, which is this thing here. So this is made by a company called Powered Play Gaming. I mean, it's not made by them. I have a suspicion they probably bought them someplace from China. And it is a video screen, which currently doesn't work because my battery is dead, which I did not realize until this morning. But it's about a 5-inch LCD screen. It does, I think, 720p, maybe only 480, but I think it's 720. And then it's got this printed circuit board thing here, and then it runs on a 1000 milliamp battery, and it has a tiny little speaker, which I'm dropping, and then it's got a whole bunch of buttons, back and forth and volume and stuff like that, because right here it has, it comes with a 128 megabyte micro SD card. So you can put videos on it. It's already got videos on it. If you go back and look at my Adepticon booty video from 2016, I showed it off then, and the battery was charged then. And there's like some sort of crazy video on it, like it's, I don't know, dancing and singing Asian ladies. And but this is basically the basis of the terrain piece that I want to be building, and that I'm going to be starting to build. So with that in mind, I went to this, and I started out saying, okay, well, so I'm going to have to find a way to put this video screen and mount it on the on these what do you call it, shipping containers. You see these shipping containers when you're like waiting for a train, they're going by, and then somebody puts them onto like a semi truck and they drive them around. And shipping containers are becoming more and more popular in tabletop wargaming as terrain, because you see a lot of people who do like Infinity, there's a lot of shipping containers, and you see a lot of different games using shipping containers. And a couple, oh gosh, more than a couple years ago, 5 years ago maybe, at Adepticon, I bought a whole bunch of shipping container kits from a company called Rusted something or other. I can't think of the name of the company anymore. But The shipping containers look like this. I'm going to get this thing out of the way. So they come flat, okay? And they're basically just, like they have doors. You can put the doors on. This one I've glued to be kind of open, but they're about, I don't know, 4.5 inches or so, and they're just black plastic. These are unpainted currently. So my plan is to take 2 of these and kind of stack them, okay? So I'm going to stack them like this, and then I'm going to have the screen attached to the front of one of these and held up with a bunch of weird struts and things like that. So you can notice here in this drawing that I did, because I always find it's a good idea to kind of draw out, sketch out what I plan to do. This is just, I use my iPad for my sketching software. I use it for work all the time, but this is the same sketching software. So you can see the screen up at the top, and it's going to be held there with magnets so that I can take the screen out if I want to. I'm going to glue those 2, what do you call them, the shipping containers together, and all the printed circuit board, battery switches, and all that junk is going to go down inside those. So I'm going to have to cut a hole in one of, you can't see that, I'm going to have to cut a hole in like a slot along the top here, so that all that stuff, the little ribbon and all that junk can go inside one of these things. And then I'm going to use, if you go to hobby stores that sell modeling stuff, they'll sell different plastic pieces for modeling, and they will sell like little tiny like I-beams that you would use in like construction, but they're plastic and they're scale, model I-beams. So I'm going to get some of those kind of things. You see those struts that are holding the screen up. I'm going to use some of those I-beams from a hobby store to look like, and then towards the back, there's going to be like a rope that's kind of holding from that back corner up to the top of the screen there. I'm just going to use like a thicker thread, and I'm going to put some CA glue on the thread so that it kind of stays rigid and hopefully swells a little bit. If anyone else has got any good ideas for how to make like a scale model rope, that would be great. But I think thicker thread or string with some CA glue soaked into it to kind of stiffen it up will probably be the best way to do it. Down towards the bottom of that illustration, you'll see I've got some barrels. They'll be probably just regular, like Games Workshop makes these plastic barrels that you can buy, and so I'll probably put some of those down there and some crates and things like that, just as extra scatter terrain. I'm going to paint these things up to be nice and rusty. The screen itself, I'm not going to do anything to. I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in the video file that I make for this, that'll be running on a loop, I'm going to make the screen look like it's grunged up in the video file. So I don't actually have to screw up the screen to make it look screwed up. I'm instead just going to screw up the video to make it look like the screen is screwed up. If you've ever seen like an LCD screen that someone has dropped or something like that, and it's got those weird lines in it and things like that, or it's like kind of screwed up, I'm going to try to look for some piece of artwork like that that I can superimpose over the video so it'll look like they found this big screen and they put it up, but it's kind of broken, and it doesn't completely work. And or maybe I can drop in some like LCD/LED artifacting, like it's not static, but how like nowadays when you look at an LCD screen, sometimes when you get those little big pixels that sort of wiggle around and stuff like that. So I'm going to do some stuff like that to make the screen look less pristine, and then make it so it's at least modular enough so that I can at least get at the battery. That's going to be kind of the hard thing. Unless I leave the battery in there, there is a this thing here. This goes to a mini USB or whatever it's called, and so if I just had this like maybe sticking out the door, I could just then plug the whole thing in and then charge it when the batteries get old. Plus I could also use it to directly interface with the computer, so I could put new videos on the card. I mean, honestly, I could put all the stuff inside here and just not be able to ever take it out again. But if I could figure out a way to build it a little bit more modular so I could take the entire video screen and all this stuff, because there is a lot of it, all this junk, out of there, that would be great. This speaker is annoying, and it's magnetic, as most speakers are, and it sticks to things. But it comes with 5 different buttons. Those buttons are like volume and next video, last video, and something else. But like I said, it doesn't work currently because the battery's dead. But yeah, it's something that I've been thinking about doing for a while, and I want to do it for post-apocalyptic stuff. But yeah, I always find that when I'm going to start down the road of figuring out what I want to build, I figure it's best always to try to visualize it and kind of start from a drawing. So I always like to sketch. This is probably sketch 2 or 3, but it's kind of the way I want to go. I want to have the containers not stacked perfectly on each other. I want to have them off a little bit, even though technically in the real world these containers are designed to be very modular and to be stacked exactly on top of each other. When you see them go by in a train and they're stacked double high, they're designed to lock together like that. But for this, I don't want them to be locked together because it doesn't look as post-apocalyptic if everything's lined up perfectly, if you know what I mean. So yeah, so my hope is to start getting started on this soon. I may not even actually use these particular containers because they're already glued, but I have more of them. They're basically just flat pieces. This is one piece, this is a piece, this is a piece, this is a piece. There's the back, and then there's the flaps for the doors. And I have at least 3 more of these in the basement, so that are not built yet. So it might be easier for me to cut my holes before they're glued together. So I might just use these as regular, terrain, and then basically use the exact same versions, but it'll be easier to cut them when they're still not glued together. Like right now, trying to cut into this is going to be like a lot of Dremel work and screwing around. Whereas if I do if I figure out what I want to do and I use these for dry fitting and trying to figure out sizes and all that kind of stuff and the positionality, then I can make the cuts that I need in the flat versions before I glue them together, and that might be better to do. So most likely that's what it's going to do. I'm going to hold on to this illustration because when this project is all done, I really want to kind of go back and compare and go, okay, well, where did I deviate? Where does it look the same? That kind of stuff. And then be able to have that and go side by side and go, look, here's the drawing and here's the finished, and kind of see how that goes. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now with this kind of stuff. And I'm looking forward to it because I haven't done like a really interesting scratch built video project in a while. So it'll be interesting to see how this all kind of goes. Let's see here. Joseph says, watch the magnets. If they are rare earth, they will cause distortions on the screen. That's a good point. That's probably true. Which maybe I want, because then it'll look like the screen's screwed up. But that's a good point. Let's see here. Why not chains? Cheap necklaces. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, too. You can use bank line. Comes in a variety of gauges and is pretty tough. Bank line. I'm not familiar with what bank line is, Christian. Is that like for fishing or something like that? Cecil twine or packing twine have good texture for mini ropes and takes PVA glue really well. PVA glue has a good flex. That's a good point, JP. I hadn't thought of that. PVA glue may be better than CA because you're right. CA glue could stick, or if it like in transit, it could get bent and then not want to bend back very easily. Whereas PVA glue is a little bit more, yeah. Hydropono says, what microcontroller and screen are you using? So this is a kit from a company called Powered Play Gaming. Powered Play Gaming? I think it's poweredplaygaming.net or something like that. They make LEDs for lighting up your models. So like let's say you have a Space Marine Rhino and you want the headlights to work. You could drill out the little headlights and then put in a little kit of headlights and like a 9-volt or maybe whatever. And so they sell different lighting kits for modeling, but they also sell these screens. They sell the screen 2 ways. This is the way I bought mine, which is just the bare screen by itself with the controllers and all that junk. But you can also buy it with a MDF laser cut, what do you call it? Like a billboard, like what it would look like on the side of the road. It's just a laser cut MDF billboard, and you snap it together with all this stuff on the inside, and then it takes care of it. So I just bought this at Adepticon last year, or actually this year, 2016, without the billboard because I wanted to make my own thing. So yeah, it's Powered Play Gaming is, I think, where they're the guys who you can get it from. Let's see here. The Undertoker says you could also strip electrical wire and use that to simulate braided cables. Oh, that's a good idea, yeah. Dennis is also saying don't put the magnets too close to the screen. Yeah, yeah. Ryan says, what kind of battery life do you get with the 1000 milliamp battery? According to their website, it should run for a couple hours. I don't know how charged it was when I got it. So now the fact that it's dead, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I didn't really use it much. So it's mostly been sitting in the box since I did that video back in April or whatever. So yeah, I got to put the battery in the charger and see how it works out. That screen is huge compared to those containers. A cell phone might be better. Well, a cell phone, I mean, honestly, my cell phone is about the same size. I've got a screen that's 5 inches on my cell phone. Yeah, like I said, actually, let me go to this screen here. So this is my iPhone 7, and this is the screen. I don't think you can really. So it's, you know, it's a little bit bigger. It's hard to get both of these into the shot, but it's not that much bigger, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. Plus, the cell phone is pretty thick too, and I like the thing I like about this is that it's very thin in comparison. Adafruit is where it's at for LCDs and displays. Yeah, that would be a good place to check too. You could make some sort of dock for terrains that you could plug the USB and let the buttons be usable. I thought about, honestly, like trying to put the buttons on the back of the one of the what do you call it, the shipping containers, and then building like a stack of, like a hollow stack of boxes that you could just put up against the back of the shipping containers, and then when you wanted to just pop them off the back of the shipping containers, you could push a button to forward to the next video and then just snap it back on. Again, maybe with magnets, but maybe not. Yeah. Let's see here. Leave the bottom off the top container and hide the guts inside of it. Use magnets to hold the top container on when you need to get access. Just lift the guts off. Yeah, I am planning on basically using the hollow nature of those so that they should fit, and it will work out well. And magnetizing the top container to the bottom container might be a really good idea. And I've got a bunch of neo magnets, so that should be fine there too. Brandon says, what kind of video will you have? Buy Nuka-Cola? I'll either just run my videos on it in a loop for fun, or I maybe would film something specific for it. Maybe a post-apocalyptic version of Tabletop Minions and then put it into the video and have that run in a loop. I'm not 100% sure yet. Run some ads in between or something. Maybe find some stuff off of... there's a video site, I think, on the internet that is all just public domain, like government videos, like, you know, like how to take care of yourself in case of nuclear attack and things like that. I mean, it'd be a good idea to kind of put some of that stuff in there just for fun. So yeah. Hydroponos says, cool that Powered Play sells kits like that. I've been using Arduino to power my tabletop projects. I have a tiny little I have a Raspberry Pi 2 that I don't exactly know 100% what to do with. I'd like to do something like this, but I haven't quite figured out what to do with it yet. And I am by no means, just so everybody knows, I am not an electronics person. I like gadgets, but I don't know much about electronics sometimes. So I don't know how to solder or any of that kind of stuff. I'm much better at building things than soldering. I have a friend who's very good at soldering and stuff like that. So maybe I could work with him. But we'll see how it works out. Let's see here. I'm going to... No, that's not working. All right. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I'm hoping that this turns out well, because I'm really looking forward to kind of showing it off, and I'll talk about it either in a video or in one of these kind of chats, and it'll be a lot of fun. Crappy 1980s Mad Max clone movies. Yeah, that'd be a good idea to put in there too, yeah. That seems like a good idea. All right. Yeah, I don't know. It's a fun kit. I like building stuff. I for a while was I was thinking about, instead of using the shipping containers, I was gonna use like a rock outcropping, and then with the rock outcropping, I was going to design it so that like the thing was up against the rock outcropping. I was gonna have to hollow out the rock outcropping to keep the guts of the video screen, and I decided I think that it just makes more sense to use these things. You can see how big they are in relation to my head now, in case you have a wonder. But they're, you know, so they're just a little bit narrower than my iPhone. You know, they're not too big, but they're not too small either. I've seen some of them that, like shipping containers that people are using for wargaming, that just are way, way, way too big scale-wise. And I don't know what they're used for, but they're not. They shouldn't be necessarily used for like normal 28mm stuff. So yeah. If magnets are problematic too close to the screen, don't forget Velcro is great for adhering stuff together in a semi-temporary way. I hadn't thought about Velcro. It'd have to be very thin strips of Velcro. But, yeah, that could be something. Matthias says, it would be nice if you documented the whole build process to make a video series about it. That's potential. I might be able to do that. I don't know. Maybe I make a blog post about it. I'm not sure. I forgot to tell you guys. Last week, Saturday, so not yesterday, but a week ago, I was on, I recorded a podcast with the guys from, if you guys haven't been listening, you should go check it out if you're interested. It's the Wargamers Soldier and Strategy magazine, which you guys are probably familiar with. It's a magazine out of, well, I think it's the UK, but maybe it's Europe. Anyway, it's Wargamer Soldier and Strategy magazine, WSS, and they recently started doing a podcast. They've maybe got 3 or 4 episodes in, and they've been pretty good. Anyway, they also do, every year they do a big Wargamer survey. Those of you who maybe have seen mention of the big Wargamer survey, maybe they call it the Great Wargamer Survey. It's been growing every year. They've been adding more and more people to the survey, and it's been interesting. Anyway, so they did this year's survey, and they had me on the podcast as a guest pundit to talk about basically the results of the survey and that kind of stuff. And I don't know that it's actually out yet. I mean, the podcast. Let me go look. It does not look like it's out yet. So they recorded it. There have been 3 so far on that podcast, but I'll be on, I'm assuming, the next one when it's released. A lot of podcasts do a kind of a thing like this, where it's not necessarily a live stream, but they record it pretty much, and then they put it out. Like, they get together and they do it like a show, and then they're done. This podcast is interesting in that they record with a lot of different people, and then the editors put it together, and they talk, so they'll say, and then we talked to this person, and then they said this, and then they, have the recording of that. So the one that I most recently listened to had a bunch of different people in it. There was a guy from WWPD, which is a blog about... It's called WWPD is What Would Patton Do, as in General George Patton. And it's about World War II games, predominantly Flames of War, and I think also some bolt action. And so they had a guy from there on it. They had Mel, the terrain tutor, on, and there was a couple other people that they had on, and it was about a different subject altogether. But in this one, they talked with me, and I think there'll probably be some other people in there as well. And it's pretty cool. So... yeah, and they do now have Josh is right, they have a painting video channel now too, so they do have, WSS is a good, they have a good painting channel too. Wargames, Soldier, and Strategy. They also do have they have you can get it on your iPad, but you can also get a printed version. I have purchased it before on my iPad because they had a really great post-apocalyptic issue last year, I think. And there have been other ones that I bought as well. Plus, it's almost every year it's part of the swag bag from Adepticon, which is where I originally first heard about them. Actually, was from the swag bag at Adepticon. But yeah, it's cool stuff, and they're great guys. I recorded with Angus, Guy, and Jasper. Angus and Guy are both in the UK, and Jasper is in the Netherlands. And it was a fun time. I'm going to be talking a little bit with Guy, actually, soon, hopefully, about, I don't know, maybe I might start writing articles for the magazine, maybe. We'll see how it goes. I'd like to do some more writing that way. This all kind of stems from a person saying, hey, you should go step by step and show your build process. And I thought, well, maybe that would be a good blog post. And I thought, well, maybe it'd be a good article for WSS, potentially. I don't know. So I'm trying to figure out kind of things that I want to get involved with like that. I've talked in the past about doing... some sort of podcast. I kind of look at this to some degree as a podcast. It's a podcast where it's, at least at this point, still generally just me, but, with your questions, of course. But eventually I would like to be able to have other people on. At some point, once I've moved down into the basement with the rest of this stuff and all that thing, I would love to have Sam on if he wants to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, actually earlier than that, because he'd have to come from where he lives to here, which takes about a half an hour. So, actually have the two of us, talking and doing this kind of stuff. That'd be interesting. It would take some technical work to make it work, but I think it might be possible. I'd also like to do some Skype stuff too, which I think I may have figured out recently. The program that I use for doing this thing and being able to switch back and forth between, the different cameras and all that jazz is a piece of software called XSplit, which I like quite a bit. And it has Skype controls built into it. The problem with trying to get somebody else on Skype to talk to me is that because the webcam here is going into XSplit, it cannot also be used for Skype at the same time. So I would actually have to have two webcams pointed at my face, one so you guys could see me, and then another one so the person that I'm Skyping with could see me. Otherwise, they would just only be able to hear me, which might be kind of weird. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sure yet on how to fix that, how to do that. But I think it would be, kind of cool. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully being able to get that kind of stuff figured out soon. I've got to do a couple tests with it. I've done one test with Skype, so I know Skype works, but that's where we discovered the problem about how the person on Skype could not see me. And then maybe that's a problem. I don't know. Maybe they can just hear me and it's fine, but I think that it might be better if they could see me. They won't be able to see the feed. That's a problem. Anyway, technical issues, just trying to figure out how to get things done, on a budget. So we'll go from there. But yeah, so that's pretty much the terrain project that I'm working on, and I'm looking forward to that. It's not something that's going to work particularly well, obviously, with Age of Sigmar. It's not something that's going to work particularly well with, even with 40K, really. It's more for post-apocalyptic type gaming, which is cool, and I enjoy that stuff. So, but yeah, Peter Pan says you could use the Raspberry Pi with a Pi cam to live stream your current game from the table. Well, that's trippy. I don't know. Would you want to? I don't know, but that'd be crazy. Necronaut Drummer says, what would Vince Ventrola's setup be? He could help you out with that, I think. Vince, I've been on Vince's show on Warhammer Wednesday a couple of times, and he uses Google Hangouts, I think. 98. Well, I mean, in the past he used Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts has changed recently, and now technically you kind of use Google Hangouts, but it has to go to YouTube Live. Google Hangouts becomes the encoder. It's a whole weird thing. YouTube's changed stuff recently. It used to be that you chose, like I use YouTube Live to do this, and they were using Google Hangouts. Well, now Google Hangouts does not go direct live to YouTube. It has to go from Google Hangouts, from what I understand, then to YouTube Live, and then YouTube Live goes to, it's crazy. I don't know why they changed it, but they did. I honestly think that Google is trying to get rid of Google Hangouts, but that's a discussion for another day. The point is that the Skype thing, because with Google Hangouts, then everybody can be on a different Hangout, and then it just shows up and it switches back and forth, which is fine, but the quality is always kind of meh. That's one of the reasons why I like to use XSplit and then go direct from YouTube, so that I can manually switch between screens and I can have like the graphics and do all that kind of stuff, which you can't do any of that kind of jazz with Google Hangouts. So that's why I've done that. But like I said, it makes the getting extra people into it a little bit more difficult, but not crazy difficult. I think I can pull it off. So let's see here. I think Open Broadcast doesn't deal with those webcam limitations. Might want to check that out. I've tried Open Broadcast in the past. Open Broadcast, I don't know. I mean, if Open Broadcast has taken control of the webcam, I don't think you can then give control of that same webcam to Skype at the same time. I just don't. I can't figure out. I mean, maybe it's the case. I'll give it a try. But generally, once a program takes hold of a webcam, you can't then make it go on to another one. But I'll do a little bit of research. Like I said, other than just messing around with it myself, I haven't done a ton of research. There's probably, I know I've seen XSplit shows with multiple streams and all kinds of stuff going on, but I think that it's probably using more multiple cameras. I mean, as it is right now, I'm using two cameras. I've got this camera here, and I've got the other, camera over here. So just not having a table view in that particular episode because I'm talking to somebody else, I just put two webcams right next to each other, and then one's the one that you guys are seeing, and the other one is the person the Skype person is seeing. That would work out just fine, I think. You can have your own floating head accompaniment, like Ben at Beasts of War. That's kind of the way that they're doing it, I'm assuming. Yeah, it's the same type of thing. I think it'd be fun also to do a green screen and like have so that I'm just like I can just put in all kinds of different backgrounds in the background. You know, I can put in star fields or images from whatever. I mean, that'd be kind of fun too. But yeah. Let's see here. Josh says one of the Gaunt's ghost books had a cultist broadcasting chaos propaganda on video boards, so it kind of fits. Yeah, I suppose that's true. I mean, obviously the screen with the shipping containers and all that would work a lot better in 40K than it would in Age of Sigmar, obviously. But yeah, that you could use it. That's true. Be kind of interesting. It'd be interesting. I could maybe put it on like some of like the Gothic kind of cathedral-y type stuff that you see as the general kind of 40K stuff terrain. I could maybe figure out a way to modify that, put it on the side of that. That'd be kind of cool too. JP just said kitty cats. I don't know why he said kitty cats. There's no kitty cats around. We do have 2 new cats, so it's 4 now, and they're in the past I talked about how there was a little bit of fraught communication between them and whatnot, but they're pretty much happy with each other now. Everybody's happy. We don't see any more hissing. Haven't seen hissing in weeks, and there's not been any fighting. And I mean, there's no one's cuddling necessarily, but they're all, a lot of times, like most of them are asleep in the sunroom right now, so that's pretty cool. They all seem to be okay with that. So yeah. Oh, JP's saying we put kitty cats on the green screen. Well, that's not a bad idea. I could totally do that. I mean, if you want, I could just start showing you cat pictures all day long, but I don't know. I don't think everybody wants that, so let's not necessarily go down that road. Let's see here. Matthias says, the person talking to you could see what you're doing in the chat by watching the stream. They would have a delay, but it could work. Yeah, I guess that's true. That's a good point. They would be able to see what's going on in that situation, but yeah, there would definitely be a delay. That's a good point, because like right now, the stuff that I'm doing when I'm watching YouTube versus what I'm saying, I'm watching myself live, and it is probably more than 10 seconds difference, I think. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I didn't realize there was that much of a, and I think you can add in more. Like if you were doing a live show and you need to be able to like bleep people who swear or whatever the thing is, you can put in even more of a delay. But just the natural delay that's built into YouTube is actually, like I said, probably close to 10 seconds or so. But yeah. All right, well, we're getting close to being done. What's going to go on between now and the next live show for me? Well, like I said, we've got Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday this week here in America. So I'll have my normal Friday videos still going live on Friday, but I'm probably going to have to film it a little earlier because I can't film it on... I won't probably be able to film it on Thursday because I'll be at, family. I'll be hanging out with family and stuff like that. So there's that. So I'm probably going to have to film it probably Wednesday night, but you still will see it at the normal Friday morning. I currently don't know what video I'm doing for Friday yet, but I'll come up with something. And then, let's see. Hopefully sometime between now and then I'm going to be able to have my giant marathon of priming and get all that stuff primed that I want to get primed so that I can get into paint mode. Like I said, I've been in build mode now for quite some time, and I want to start getting into paint mode again, just because I've got a lot of stuff to get painted once I get it primed. So that'll be good. Speaking of cats, somebody is clawing at something underneath my table here. But yeah, that's my hope, is that definitely I want to get that stuff primed at least between now and the next. It's got to happen. I mean, it'll probably happen hopefully before the weekend, this upcoming weekend, which would be nice. But we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Do I have any other events going on? I don't think so. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing any other events or anything like that. And yeah, I think that's about it. Let's see here. New Painter says I could just broadcast pictures of skulls. Boom. It's 40Kified. That's true. There's a lot of skulls. That makes sense. Let's Let's see here. Douglas Hooker says, you said this sort of challenge is why you ventured into these videos. This will be your difficult model to improve your video making skills. No, it's true. I mean, the reason that I got into any of this, as far as the video channel and everything, is because I wanted to learn more about video production. And I have, and I've been enjoying that. The live stuff I've been very interested in lately. I've been trying to learn a little bit more about Twitch. Not so much that I want to be on Twitch, because for those of you that aren't familiar with Twitch, twitch.tv, it's mostly a place where you go to watch people play video games. But they are starting to spread out a little bit more into, you're starting to see people playing D&D on Twitch. You're starting to see people playing other games on Twitch. The issue that I have with Twitch is that during whatever they deem to be prime time for their video service, if you're not one of their big people, you will not get shown. If you're not one of their big money makers or whatever, during prime time, they just won't show your videos. Secondly, from what I understand, and I don't know if they've changed this, but it used to be the case that if you made a live video, you did a live video, and then after like 24 hours or a week or something like that, it just disappeared. If people didn't catch it live, they had to catch it, later on, and then if they didn't catch it within a certain amount of time, it disappeared. With YouTube Live, the thing that I think is really interesting is that I can do this kind of stuff and people can watch it live and I can interact and chat and do all that kind of jazz, and that's great. And then it just becomes a video that people can watch later. And for our people, for video gamers, I can understand not needing to see something that happened last week or the week before or anything like that, because you're probably just watching it most likely while you're video gaming, or maybe not. Maybe you're just watching it just to watch it. With the stuff that we do, these videos I think can be very useful for people who want to use it like a podcast. I need to paint for a couple hours. I'm going to listen to Uncle Adam answer questions and talk about stuff on the live show, which is maybe hasn't been it's 4 months old. People who find the channel are going to have this backlog of longer things to listen to while they're painting. So for me, I would probably still stick with YouTube Live in this situation, just because I think it would make more sense. But yeah, I know that they call it Twitch Creative. So yeah, Twitch Creative is getting bigger, and I've heard about people who are, painting and talking while they paint. And I'm talking about models. I'm talking about like paintings, like normal like fine art type stuff. But I don't know that it's necessarily. I mean, the video gaming thing is really always the big thing at Twitch. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I think I'm going to keep still doing the live stuff through YouTube just because I prefer it, and because then it becomes part of the archive, and then people can watch it, for years afterwards, which is fine by me. Let's see here. All of a sudden, there's a whole bunch of questions that popped up at once. Wow, that happened pretty quick. What do you think about Game of Thrones Night's Watch themed Frostgrave warband? Night's Watch theme. That'd be kind of cool. I could see that. You'd have to get out your black paints, but yeah, you could do a pretty cool warband. Now, I mean, if you really wanted the lore to be there, it wouldn't make sense too much that they would go treasure hunting through Frostgrave, but they could still look pretty damn cool. I think that's pretty cool. Let's see here. Obviously, you'll just loop max headroom on that screen. I could, honestly. Actually, I have... back in the 90s, there was a TV show in America that was Max Headroom. After Max Headroom was quite popular and stuff, they made an actual TV series. It only lasted maybe a season, maybe 2. But I have the entire series on DVD, which I bought probably 3-4 years ago. So I could put some of that stuff on there. That'd be kind of cool. So yeah. How's the Nerd Bunker coming along to move down there full time? Well, my most recent videos have been coming from there, but it is going slowly. I was down there last night breaking up boxes. I've been saving boxes that I get from Amazon and things like that, so that when I want to sell stuff on eBay, I already have boxes that I can put them in. But I've been not breaking them down because I'm like, well, if I break them down, I'm just going to have to tape them back together again. And then last night I just really realized, I'm like, I want to keep them, but I want to start making them flat so they'll take up less space. So I was doing a bunch of that last night and some other stuff. Basically taking another garbage bag down there and throwing stuff away and whatever. Looking at things really be like, I really don't think I'm going to use this ever, and then getting rid of it. So I'm working on that, but it's taken some time. Matthias says, Twitch is almost unwatchable here in Brazil. Their servers are really bad. Well, that's kind of a bummer, too. And I think that's probably why Twitch only shows their big earners during prime time, is because they only have so much server space and so much bandwidth, whereas YouTube has got a lot more. So that's another one of the reasons why I see myself sticking with YouTube on that. Robbie says, watching while playing a bit of MechWarrior Online while waiting for models to dry. Painting up 11 Sisters of Battle with Meltaguns at the moment. That's cool. MechWarrior Online. I played that a little bit when it first came out. I think I was in on the Kickstarter, I think. And yeah, I played that for a little while. I'm really looking forward to the new BattleTech Online. Just because I think I've gotten to a point where I don't want to be in the mech anymore, like from a cockpit standpoint. I want it to be a little bit more tabletop. I want to see it from above and go, these guys should go here and these guys should go here. And the new BattleTech is going to be, from what I understand, turn-based and kind of more, not exactly top-down, but sort of like 3D angle sort of top-down. And I think that's really interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. Plus, it's Jordan Weissman. He's like running everything for it, and he's the guy who basically, him and FASA invented BattleTech. So pretty much on board for that. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, Adam. Great show. Twitch sounds interesting. Well, thanks. Yeah, no, definitely. All right, well, it's 11 o'clock, and so the sun has come out, and now my lighting is way off. I mean, you can see over here I'm way overlit all of a sudden. It was quite dark when I started. But anyway, I appreciate everybody who came to the show and checked things out. And I hope that you at least maybe learned a little bit of something, or at least had a good time and passed the time while you were painting and working on things. I'll keep you guys informed on the terrain project as it goes forward. And yeah, definitely. So next show will be in 2 weeks on Sunday. And I don't know the date on that. It might be the 4th. Let me look here real quickly. Today is the 20th. Yeah, no. Sorry, not the 4th. Next one will be the 11th. No, it will be the 4th. Yes, December 4th will be the next show. Sunday, December 4th. You'll find information on the Facebook page and things like that if you're interested. And I'll be letting everybody know about it ahead of time. And set your notifications if you want to go down that route and be alerted when it actually starts, just in case you forget. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you next time.